Welcome to a couple of bunkies.
In today's Bunkies woodworking video, we'll take you through how we made this beautiful curly maple box.
This was a pretty simple box build. I already had some curly maple and ambrosia maple resawn and planed, and I just had to select boards that would fit the sizes of cuts that I needed to make.
Tim started off by squaring up all the boards using combination of miter gauge and his saw fence. Tim also set his saw fence to a desired measurement to cut the boards along the length and the width for each surface of the box.
After cutting all the sides, I go ahead and do a quick dry fit. This larger box was designed in order to house a small inner tray with several compartments. So I cut down the boards to size for the inner tray.
Since this box wasn't that deep, Tim cut some rabbets on all four sides of the box. These rabbets will hold top and bottom of the box.
I then set my saw blade to 45 degrees and started cutting my miter butt joints. After cutting the miters, I went ahead and did a quick dry fit in order to take the inner dimensions of the rabbets.
Tim reset his table saw blade and the fence to match the dimensions measured earlier and cut the top and the bottom of the box.
I do a quick dry fit and set up a surface that I can go ahead and start gluing up this entire box. I use a frame clamp in order to hold the rabbet and miter joints together. After adding a ton of clamps, I go ahead and set it into the other room so the glue will dry.
Tim adjusted the table saw fence so that he can cut rabbets for the inner box. Then he set his table saw to cut miters for the sides of the inner box.
I do a quick dry fit with the inner box, find the dimensions for the bottom board. After the glue is dry, I take the box to the sander and go over all of the faces.
While Tim is sanding down this box so it's smooth to touch, I hope you like our content. Please consider subscribing and ring that bell icon so you get notified of our future videos.
I next round off all of the corners of the box. I take the box to the table saw and cut the lid from the body. I then cut the inner tray in half. You will see why I did this in a few minutes.
Tim decides to be fancy and gets out a strip of walnut he had left over from other projects. He then cuts that walnut strip into even thinner strips to match the wall thicknesses of both inner and outer boxes.
I use this thin strip of walnut as a premium accent in order to draw out the color in the ambrosia maple by laying it down the center of the inner tray.
Tim also decides to make a border out of this walnut strip along the top. So he decides to cut some miter butt joints on the walnut strip. As Tim did some dry fitting, he had to make some finer adjustments since the part was very small.
I glue the accent pieces to the lid of the box. While that's drying, I go ahead and start working on the small tray.
Tim cut the strip into dimensions matching two sides and length of the box. He then glues these accent pieces into the inner tray and clamps them together. It looks like Tim glued up the accent piece to the top alright, but he forgot to clamp it down, so now he starts clamping it down with every clamp he owns.
After the glue has dried, I square off all of the accent pieces so there's no overlap. There were some areas of the box that just didn't feel square, so I went ahead and went over every side and squared them up. And I squared up the inner tray.
The inner tray was going to be compartmentalized in 2 or 3 sections, so he cut the strips out for the section. But Tim, being a big bunkie, he started cutting them to the size of the outer box instead of the inner tray. Seems like he realized his mistake right away and started cutting them to the right size.
I used CA glue and accelerator in order to install these little compartmentalized sections. The inner tray sat pretty low in the outer box, so I went ahead and cut some shims for the inner tray. Normally I would have had rabbets already cut so that the tray will rest on them. I am pleased how the inner tray sits slightly higher and almost overlaps with the top of the lid.
Tim cleaned up the glue residue with the help of a chisel from the bottom of the box and the inner tray. Tim got out his belt sander and gave the entire project some thorough sanding. Then he got out his sanding jig and made sure that the interface between the lid and the body were perfect.
And I finished it off with some more sanding. After all that hard work, this is how it ended up looking.
I think it looks very pretty as is. At Bunky's Woodworking, we enjoy making heirloom products, so we engraved this image provided by the commissioner of this box.
By adding something to personalize the box, it makes it harder to remove from the family. Therefore, it will get handed down from generation to generation. And this means a lot to this couple of bunkies.
I hope you enjoyed making of this little box. Please consider subscribing.
You can leave us a super thanks, buy us a cup of coffee, or even become a Patreon supporter in order to help us out. All the links are in the description below. And again, thank you for watching this video.